All right, so thanks for coming to watch this interview with Dave Von Beeker. He is a musician that is very talented and he makes a lot of really great content. I hope you enjoy us talking about his goals and how it affects his spirituality. All right, thanks for coming to my space, Dave. I'm really excited to talk to you about your musicianship and your songwriting skills and all the great things you do creating the thing we call music.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I think we can just get right into it, right?
Boom. Let's do it.
First question. So can you give me a brief statement about who you are and what kind of art you make?
Sure. Well, I have to rewrite this kind of bio statement like several times a year. So currently I will say that I'm, I play it under Von Beeker, which is just my last name. And I say that I play bow tie rock to haunt your heart. Right. So I wear a bow tie every time I play music, mostly because I like wearing bow ties, and there's not very many excuses in real life to wear them. So this was a good way to get away with collecting bow ties for some reason.
Yeah.
And rock, because I kind of play genre is always kind of a funny thing. As soon as you say a genre, you feel like it's constricting. I do, anyways.
Yeah.
So like folk, I feel like is too gentle, and rock is too edgy. I'm not always there, and pop is like I don't want. So I've kind of just made up my own genre, and so it's kind of rock with a vintage kind of vibe to it, and a little bit of the edges sanded off, maybe.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, what I like about your music is even though you don't classify it as any one thing, I can definitely hear different influences in it when I listen to it. Yeah. I mean, like, I was just thinking about, because I've been listening to a lot of Americana lately, I'm like, you can totally find that kind of tone or rockabilly tones in some of the song choices you make.
Yeah, right? And a lot of times it's just dictated by, what you're listening to at the time, or what an instrument wants to do.
Yeah.
Like, I'll write totally different songs on one instrument from another, because I think they all have a different character to them. So and then the haunt your heart part of the bow tie rock to haunt your heart is really intentional, because I kind of have thought a lot about what I want music to do, why I make it, and I don't have any kind of grand illusions of becoming a huge household name worldwide at any point. I'm not opposed to the idea, but I've kind of given up on that at this point and said that's not important to me. But what is important to me is connection.
Do you find it challenging to create with a sense of routine?
So for me, like over the years, I've learned kind of what my magic hours are, when I can create better stuff and when I'm kind of useless. So like usually when I was at a desk job between 1 and 3 is when I would find myself literally just like dragging windows around on my screen and then be like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I probably would have been way more valuable to the company if I just went and had a nap and come back to work. I would have been way better.
But unfortunately, they don't. They wouldn't let you take naps.
They don't. They did not. That job did not offer naps.
Yeah.
But when you're working on your own, you can have naps, or you can have a bath, or you can go for a walk, or you can do all these other things that I find really restoring and renewing. Yeah. And sometimes the routine is actually remembering to include those things in your day, so that you're not just like, there's the thing about chopping down the tree without sharpening your axe, right? So I think that's really important.
Yeah.
So there's that, just like working in things that I actually enjoy doing.
For sure.
But there's also the idea of quantum time is really important. So those like unbroken blocks of time.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the Pomodoro technique?
Yeah.
It's like that, right? Where you give yourself a certain block to work on something, take a little intentional break. Yeah. And then work again.
Yeah, and when I'm like at my best, that's what I do. Yeah. But it comes and goes with, you try and turn off those distractions and sit in and get in the zone and work for, even just like the one thing from that book is a lot of times for these artists and writers and stuff, it's like 2, 3, 4 hours. It's not like 6, 7, 8 hours. Yeah. And they feel like, in 4, 3, even 2 hours, they've gotten, because they did it at the right time and in the right mindset, they've really gotten this whole day of creative work, whatever their goal is for that day.
Yeah, very productive.
Yeah, so I set my days up that way. I try and do work in the mornings. I try and schedule things, relaxing things, or coffee time or whatever with friends, or meetings in the afternoons.
Yeah,
because it's just a different part of my brain.
Did you or have you seen or heard about Winston Churchill? So what he used to do is he would like take naps in the middle of the afternoon. The movie Darkest Hour, they actually like put that in the movie.
Naps. It's the most exciting
like,
part of the movie.
He's supposed to be taking a meeting with the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Or sorry, no, he is the Prime Minister. He's supposed to be taking a meeting with the King.
Yeah.
And the King's like, when do you want to meet weekly? And then he's like, how about this time at 3? And he's like, well, that's when I take my nap.
Yeah.
As you said that, I immediately thought of that. I was like,
yeah,
it's the great minds, right?
Yeah, and again, that was a really common thread in that book. Is so many of these artists, they had naps, like scheduled naps taken in, and sometimes they would, the idea of the way we do our sleep cycle is, I think, a relatively new thing in the history that's based a lot on artificial light and all that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of times throughout history, people broke up their sleep a lot that way.
Who best identifies or exemplifies the nature of art to you?
It's funny. I probably would answer this question different anytime you asked it to me. But the first name that came to mind was David Byrne.
Okay.
So David Byrne, the Talking Heads frontman, and he's gone on to do just so many different things in his life.
Yeah.
And I think there's a few reasons why I think he would be as good a candidate as any. Anyways, one is that he continually explores. He's always doing new things. I don't know how old he is, but he's not young anymore.
Yeah.
And he's still he's coming here in May, I think, and doing like one of the biggest tours he's ever done. The big dance troupe behind him and all this stuff. And he's always I remember reading about him. He was on the cover of Wired with Tom York several years ago, about music and technology and things like that.
Right.
And I read his book, How Music Works. I don't know if you've read that book, but it's a fantastic book. But I think what I saw in that is his willingness to explore, his willingness to play, which I think is really important. Like he does some projects just like, I think research and development is really important in art as in any other field.
Yeah.
And this is where we get in all the troubles with like government funding and stuff, because people don't seem to realize that you have to fund failures if you're going to get successes. Like that's just part of the deal, right?
Yeah, you're not everything's going to be a masterpiece.
No.
Yeah.
And you can't always determine that beforehand, right? And if you set out that I'm only going to make masterpieces, then you never make anything. Yeah. So what I've seen in his career is just this willingness to collaborate with new artists that are totally different from him, draw, like spend time in different cultures, have a respect for people's spirituality and even specific religious beliefs, even though I don't know that he subscribes to them. When I've heard him talk about or relate to different beliefs that people have and cultural customs and stuff, he always seems to do it with a level of respect, but even like awe and wonder. Like he's just like, there's kind of a joy to it. And I think an openness. Just he seems to be really open to when something new comes around, he'll play with it, see if it fits into his practice. But just never stale, never stagnant.
Would you be able to make art without intention behind it?
I struggle with that, but I think I should be able to, more so. Because I think, again, that comes into play a little bit more. And I used to write songs with a very, like, clear, and write anything with a very clear intention. And by intention, I mean end in sight, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'd always want to write, if I was going to write a story, the ultimate story would be like the M. Night Shyamalan kind of thing, or the Usual Suspects thing, where it's like everything's been building up to this one
amazing twist,
and or revelatory moment.
Was it Robot Chicken? What a twist! Anyway, keep.
Yeah. Anyways, I obviously haven't watched as much Robot Chicken as I should, apparently. But yeah, I find when you try and you strangle the life out of the thing, trying to fit it, and everything I ever tried to make that way was pretty bad.
Right.
Like, I'm pretty embarrassed about it now. So, moving towards a space where I think it's an intention, but it's not necessarily an end in mind. It's more being open in a certain direction.
So you have an initial orienting point or vision or whatever.
Yeah, but just letting. I've written some songs in the last few years with lyrics that kind of scared me or surprised me or were like, I didn't know how I would feel about singing them or saying them.
Right.
That feels a lot more honest and like better work. And those are always the songs and the lines that people respond to the best. Are those moments where you're vulnerable and scared.
Right.
So usually your intention is not to expose yourself and be vulnerable and terrified all the time.
Right.
So in that sense, intention can be a bad thing. But if we're saying like meaning, I do mostly want to create things that to me have some sort of meaning.
What do you feel when you are performing and making?
I love performing. I've always loved performing since I was a little kid. I don't know what it is in me, but when I get, especially if I can be on a stage with a band behind me and I'm not having to concentrate so hard on kind of being in control of everything that's happening up there, and I can let loose a little bit more, those are great moments. So for me, it's kind of a euphoric, just energy. Yeah. Just to be in the middle of a song, knowing where it's going to go emotionally, knowing there's going to be a lift, coming.
Yeah, that's good.
And if I've got a band on the stage with me, coming up to that moment, and everybody just shows up at the right moment, and you just feel this almost like a physical.
It's a lift. Yeah.
That's just one of the best feelings in the world.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's probably, if I'm honest, that's why I do all of this, is just for those like 30 seconds of of that every.
It's a weird. We were talking about like the sublime or the wonder earlier. Like it's a perfect signifying example of that, right? Where all of a sudden everything's just working perfectly, harmoniously, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's like a sense of being. I'm like a hammer hitting nails at that moment. Like I'm a tool being used to do what I was designed to do, and something feels really right and good about that.
Yeah.
So I love that. Creating.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I love it when inspiration strikes and you kind of like feverishly grab your phone or whatever it is, your guitar or whatever it is, however it is you get your ideas down, and you're in that moment of like getting that down. It's great, but I mean, usually for me, that when that happens, it comes as an interruption. It rarely takes over me at a convenient time. So I'm usually having to like steal time away from something else, or like my whole family's upstairs finishing supper, and I'm like, I gotta go, I'll be back in 10 minutes, and I have to go downstairs and be a total ass to everybody. And I get really frustrated and upset when people interrupt me in the middle of that flow, and I'm not always my best self in those moments where I'm trying to actually capture it. So there are good, it does feel good sometimes, but it also that part feels a lot more like work.
It's draining. It's a process. It's, and I know that I can never, and I'm sure you would agree with this, Dave, I can never say that I will know what it is like to experience childbirth.
Right.
but I feel
I
like...
do agree with that.
I feel like creating something based on what I've read and heard and had told to me.
Yeah.
Sometimes feels like that process.
Yeah.
Where it's like you're putting so much of yourself into it and something's being taken away from you, and it's you have these strong feelings about it, and like you said, like you don't want to be interrupted or you want to be treated a certain way. Like there's all these very strong feelings associated with
it. Strong and strange.
Yeah.
Too. I feel weird. I feel like I'm a weird person when I'm like, when I'm writing, for instance, I can't have anybody, like writing music, I can't have anybody around me. Like, I mean, my wife is my closest friend. She knows everything about me. But I do not want her listening in when I'm, if I'm working out a melody or whatever, or singing it, I'll be like whispering it so no one can hear it. It's like, I don't know why. Like, as soon as it's done, I'll take it and sing it out loud for them, and I don't care.
Yeah.
But
in that moment,
until it's formed, it's like I'm very protective of it. It's this very precious thing, and maybe that's because the chord is still attached. If we want to go with that metaphor, still, right? We're still kind of almost sharing this life force. It's not a separate thing yet.
Yeah.
So you're most vulnerable maybe in that moment.
Yeah. When it's still part of you, like it's still very much part of you. Yeah. Like I always hated it when I was drawing, and especially in drawing class. I don't know why, but maybe because it's such a fundamental artistic thing.
Yeah. I
would be drawing something, and then the professor's criticizing me in the act of it.
Yeah, because you want to be like, I'm not even convinced of this yet.
Why are you telling me?
I can't know until I get this down if this is something I'm happy with or not, right? So to have somebody hear or see mid-stroke what that is, that's a terrifying thing.
Can art exist without music and vice versa?
Yeah, I don't know. Music is such a important part of life, and I think it exists in so many. Even if we didn't make it, it would still exist. I think in nature, whether it's bird song to waves crashing on a shore or sound in a seashell. I think all those things can be music. I remember riding the bus to school or riding in the back of the car and always trying to make a song to the wipers, to the beat of the wipers.
Oh yeah.
So there's always music everywhere. Maybe that's just because I'm a musician, but so I think it'd be really difficult to separate them. Yeah, I don't know. Do you paint? When you paint, do you do it to music or do you do it with silence?
I've done both.
Yeah.
My preference when I create is to have other creative things happening around me. So like I watch movies, or I'll listen to music, or I'll listen to someone talking.
Yeah.
Like I actually, and maybe it's just because I grew up in such a large household, I've always enjoyed like creative things happening around me. But like you, I don't like it when people invade my creative zone.
Yeah.
So I can have passive things happening, but nothing in my face.
Yeah, like that's same with me.
I couldn't have someone doing performance art in my personal space while I'm doing performance art, for example.
Yeah, no, I think I'm the same way. And I know some artists that paint, to songs, like to popular music.
Yeah.
So it's more interesting to me all the different ways that they can exist together. Because I'm not sure I can answer the question because I can't really picture a world without any music anyways.
Yeah.
But I do think they're connected some way. So if I'm forced to give an answer, I'm going to say no.
Where can you expect to see yourself in the next few years?
I would like to be able to long-term, as I said earlier, make and record and share music. And that requires a certain amount of time and a certain amount of money to facilitate.
Right. So
basically, I want to be able to carve out enough time and make enough money to do that perpetually. So that necessitates a certain level of growth, of number of albums I'm selling or streams I'm getting, I guess now.
Yeah.
I'd like to be putting out an album every 1 to 2 years, putting out, releases in between that. and then doing a few small tours throughout the year and playing some festivals in the summer.
Right.
Maybe bring the family along and make a holiday of that in the summer. Those are kind of my goals, so nothing crazy lofty.
Yeah.
And I hope, 3 years from now, I would like to have probably let's say I'm releasing my second album and about to tour that album and have some slots on some of the folk fests around the country. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so nothing too lofty,
mm-hmm.
but nothing so vague that you can't set little mini goals to get to those actual larger goals, right?
Yeah, because I don't know, like you probably know this with doing YouTube as well, like there's always, when you're your own boss and you're kind of in like managing your own time or input into an endeavor, even if it's not your full-time job, you can always work harder. Like you can always do more work. So
that's right.
Like making one video this week is good, but making 2 videos might be better, right? And replying to every comment would be ideal, and there's just always another level you can take it. So you need to know, I find having those goals is not just good to like know what to stretch for, but also to know like what to say no to.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a musician, I mean, there's so many different ways I could go, and it's kind of frustrating right now because in the early stages you're kind of like just throwing a lot of spaghetti at the walls to see what sticks where and try and figure out what direction you should follow.
Right.
But I think I'm finally getting to the place where I'm able to say no to some things, and all comes back to, is this going to help me get my music better known?
I don't know if you know this about me, but I always save the hardest and most reflective question for last.
I'm learning this right now.
So this is the question that I think best encapsulates you and your identity and what I've learned about you, getting to know you, and I think it fits the theme of this interview very well. So with that said, no pressure, obviously.
No pressure. This is going to be some question.
Why is reconciliation between art and faith important?
Because I think both of those disciplines are the worse off for being separated.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know that the religious world needs the arts because in religion it's kind of about ultimate reality and trying to connect with God and trying to connect with one another.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times going at those things very directly is not the best way to go at those things, because we shut ourselves off to from fear or from past hurts or from whatever. We shut ourselves down to even exploring some of those questions anymore, because we've had answers in the past that we've just said, oh, I'm too old to fall for that anymore, or whatever, right?
Right.
Art is this really daring adventure, this really sometimes a lonely endeavor, really risky, whether that's risking your identity, risking your mental health, risking your finances.
Yeah.
Artists are just put themselves on the line all the time and at the margins, and sometimes that makes them hard to get along with or not well received in traditional society.
Right.
And for my understanding of who Jesus is and what the church that I'm a part of is supposed to be about, it's about going out to people on the margins and welcoming them in and giving them somewhere to feel loved, to know that they're cared for and know that they're important and that they matter.
Yeah.
So whether it's through religion or something else, I think artists intensely need that. They need to be loved, not because of the last thing they made and how good that was or wasn't, because that's a terrifying proposition.
It's like, I work in retail, so I have this mantra beat into me constantly about living and dying by the weekend, right? Because sales is king, and if there are no sales, then there is no, future of that business. So it's very difficult to see meaning in things, but if you don't have meaning in things, then people don't care about your business either. So taking it to the art and taking it to faith, it's the same thing. It's people aren't going to care about you as a person if you aren't a good presenter of yourself, and if all you do is care about the sale of your art or the sale of your persona, people aren't going to connect to you.
Yeah, and there are lots of stories of artists that kind of lived in this tension, and artists that the book on routines I was reading, Toulouse-Lautrec was one of the artists I read about, and he was just lived this crazy kind of debauched, drunken existence, and just partying all the time and whatever, and he's obviously known now as an artist that created great lasting work. But the end of this short bio is like something like he often told friends he wouldn't last to his 40th birthday, and in reality he died at 36. It's like this very short, like, an artist's life can be very demanding and very unhealthy if you're not grounded in some sort of something bigger than yourself that reminds you that you're not all that important, and in a community, right? And faith is one of the places where those things can come, for sure. Yeah,
it makes a huge difference in terms of your expectations versus reality kind of statement, right?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I have go by a slight moniker, and why I dress in a slightly different way whenever I do music, because I want there to be a slight reminder for me that this is a persona, this is like something I'm becoming for a period of time, but this isn't the core of who I am. There's so much more to who I am than just this thing I make, right?
I think that's a really apt statement about everything we just described, right? There, as much as like there are masks we wear, and there's a fear out there, I think, and it's in religion as much as it is in anything else. But there is value in accepting facets of yourself and not being so hard pressed to present one version of yourself at all times.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of been an unsung theme throughout everything we've talked about.
Well, it's a good theme, so
yeah,
I'm glad.
And I apologize, but not like it's like sorry, not sorry about the pun in there. But
did I miss a pun?
I said unsung theme.
Oh man, no! Don't apologize. Don't ever apologize for puns.
Yes.
I'm yeah.
So
I'm big on puns.
That's good, man. So with that said, I think we had a really great conversation, Dave, and I hope you enjoyed it.
It was fantastic.
And I think I can now safely slot you into my Rolodex of artists that I've would want to connect with in the long term, and I hope all the best for you in your endeavors, because you're doing some great stuff.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Tim. It's an honor to be here on the couch.
Absolutely.
This hallowed couch.
Yeah. So until next time, that's it, and thanks again. So I want to thank you, my viewers, for sitting through this great interview, and I hope you learned something, and I hope you check out Dave's channels, and please comment, like the video, share it, hit the little button, you know what I'm talking about, that bell, and I'll see you at the next interview.
You didn't want to share your art with the world, you were talking about.
Yeah.
And I think, I kind of came to this conclusion that it's like, it's the most selfish thing you can do you need to view yourself as a channel.
Yes.
And you want to keep the channel open.
Yeah.
And you want to keep the channel clean and clear.
Yeah.
And just kind of be reception, right?